Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen.
Right, so guys, I feel like today's episode is quite interesting and I'm very happy to be presenting this. And I was just scrolling around TikTok when I came through a woman who was analyzing a movie. Yeah?
Right, and you know, more often than not, they usually say movies depict some of the reality that happens in society. And the biggest question we are asking today is, you as a black person, when you notice that a palm-colored person starts taking interest in you, ask yourself, what about you is so interesting for this person to want me around them? And even so, ask yourself, especially if you're the first black person this palm-colored person is dating, what do they want from you?
Yeah, and then also another thing I ask myself, this movie was produced, to a point where it was edited and put out there, and I was asking myself,
Hollywood does a lot of things that they just tell you in the open,
but they kind of hide it under something, And I was asking myself, why would they want this information out there? Because it's very revealing, and I encourage you to watch the whole video to the end, because the end is the most revealing, and it's very unexpected. But we don't want to talk a lot, guys. We don't want to spoil it for you. Let's watch, and then we come back and talk about it. You can leave us your comments and thoughts, opinions on the comment section. Also consider subscribing. Let's watch and then we come back.
Get out, full spoilers, here we go. The movie starts off with this man named Andre walking at nighttime. Then out of nowhere, a car pulls up and kidnaps him. Then it cuts to Chris and his girlfriend Rose on their way to visit Rose's family for the first time. He asks her if her family knows that he's black, and she tells him no, but she assures him that they're not racist. He meets her dad Dean, who is a neurosurgeon, her mom Missy, who is a hypnotherapist, and her brother Jeremy, who wants to fight him for some reason. Chris notices that the vibes are off with the family. The family keeps making disconcerting comments about black people to Chris, kind of like the whole I have a black friend so I can't be racist sort of energy. He meets the housekeeper named Georgina, and her energy is also really whack. Like, she has the same mannerisms almost as the other white family members do. Chris meets the groundskeeper named Walter, and his energy is also really weird. Chris even finds Walter at nighttime just sprinting as fast as he can in the middle of the night. One night, the mom Missy pressures Chris into a hypnotherapy session. While in a trance, Chris confesses that his mom was unalived in a hit-and-run accident when he was a child, and he feels responsible for it. She starts swirling her tea with her spoon and then dings it. And then Chris enters something called the sunken place, where he's stuck in the deep roots of his consciousness, but he can't actually move around. Basically frozen while his mind is stuck in his body. The next day, Chris attends Rose's family's annual get-together, and a whole bunch of wealthy white people show up. They keep expressing an admiration for Chris's physique and are saying things like black people are in style, and are bringing up other black people such as Tiger Woods to him. Now, Chris is a photographer, and he meets a blind man named Jim who takes a particular interest in Chris's photography skills. He also meets a man named Logan who behaves very strangely and is married to a much older white woman. Does he look familiar? Now Logan starts rambling, and he's behaving so strangely that Chris decides to secretly video record him, but the flash accidentally goes off, and then immediately Logan's face goes from super happy to super serious. His personality does a 180, and then he starts screaming at Chris to get out. Then a few hours later, Logan meets Chris in the living room with the rest of Rose's family, and Logan explains to him that he just had an epileptic seizure and that everything is all good again. Chris exits the party with Rose and tells her that he really just wants to get the hell out of there. While Chris is away, you can see Rose's dad Dean holding a silent auction for Chris, disguised as a game of bingo. Now Chris has a really good friend named Rod who is a TSA officer, and he's been calling Rod, updating him about his experience there, and of course Rod is like, "Ayo, get the fuck out of there." Chris texts Rod a photo that he took of Logan at the party, and then Rod recognizes him as someone that he knows. He recognizes Logan as a man named Andre who went missing in Brooklyn, and that's the guy I showed you at the beginning of the video. Now Rod tells Chris that he has a theory that these white people are kidnapping black people and using them as what he calls... Chris tries to call the police, but his phone battery ran out because Georgina had unplugged it while it was charging. At this point, Chris is fed up and he demands to Rose that they get out. Now, early in the relationship, Rose told Chris that he was the first black guy that she's ever dated. But when he starts packing up to leave, he finds old photos of Rose in previous relationships with several black partners. Okay, go to part 2 where I can wrap this up. Get out, full spoilers, part 2. Now, like I said, Chris found photos of Rose and several black partners, including photos of her dating Georgina and dating Walter. Chris tries to escape, but the family locks him in, and Rose also withholds his keys from him. Then Missy hypnotizes him against his will, and he gets knocked out. Chris wakes up strapped to a chair in a basement. There's a video being played of Rose's grandfather explaining that their family transplants people's brains into other people's bodies, granting them preferred physical characteristics and immortality, while the consciousness of the original person gets trapped in the sunken place, unable able to control their body while the new host controls everything. Then Jim, the blind guy that Chris met earlier at the party, starts talking to him on the screen. He tells Chris that he wants Chris's eyesight and that he is going to be Chris's new host. Chris gets hypnotized again and then wakes up hours later. He notices that the stuffing in his chair is coming out. Rose's brother Jeremy comes to fetch Chris for the transplant surgery, and Chris knocks Jeremy out. Chris used the stuffing in the chair to plug his ears so he wouldn't get hypnotized by the ding of the teacup on the TV, and he pretended he was hypnotized and asleep so he could sneak attack Jeremy. Then Chris sneaks into the operating room where Dean was about to perform surgery on Jim for the transplant, and Chris unalives Dean with the antlers of a deer head that was on the wall. A candle gets knocked down, and then the whole operating room catches on fire, including Jim. Now Chris's good friend Rod goes to the police because he's concerned that Chris is in some serious trouble, but the police don't take him seriously and just laugh at his theory. As Chris tries to escape, he runs into Missy and he ends up unaliving her. Then the brother Jeremy tries to stop him, but Chris ends up unaliving him after a fight. As Chris drives away, he accidentally runs over Georgina. Chris has flashbacks of when his mom was unalived in a car accident, so he picks Georgina up, even though he probably shouldn't. You hear Chris's now ex-girlfriend Rose mutter the words grandma at Georgina. So the grandma had basically been the brain inside of Georgina's body after the transplant. Georgina wakes up and tries to attack Chris, but then the vehicle crashes and she becomes unalived. You can see Rose in her room eating cereal while browsing on her laptop for new victims to seduce and take back to the family. Then an armed Rose approaches Chris outside with Walter, who's the groundskeeper. She calls Walter Grandpa, so it's implied that the grandpa's brain had been transplanted into Walter's body. Walter attempts to unalive Chris, but then Chris shines his phone flashlight at Walter. Walter snaps out of it and then pew-pews Rose. Chris attempts to unalive Rose, but he just doesn't have it in his heart to do it. Then a police car shows up and Chris puts his hands up while Rose is like, help me, I'm being attacked. But then his best friend Rod pops out the car and then Rose is left on the ground to perish. Then they drive away in like awkward silence and then Rod breaks the silence by going like, bro, I told you shouldn't have gone in the first place. The end.
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about the episode we just played in the comment section. Yeah, you know, I'm looking at this video and I'm asking myself, why would they want this kind of information out there? It's like them openly saying or telling what interest they have in black people. But may I say, this is to the advantage of melanated people, because at least now you know
what they target or what they're looking for, so that you can take measures to protect yourself.
Right.
Because some people might just want to exist in a blissful world and say, no, give them credit because this is just a movie. But how many times have you seen a movie that being played out in reality, like The Simpsons?
Right, The Simpsons. We also have The Handmaid's Tale. We have Leave the World Behind. There's also this movie that has depicted the truth. I'm trying to remember it. Once I do, I'll mention it here. But guys, the red flags are always there. Do you know, much as this is a movie, there's somebody who has lived the reality of what this is.
And you know, my biggest question is, why would they target only exclusively in this movie black people and not white people? This is like them admitting what black people have been knowing, that they are the superior beings. And I'm not trying to massage anybody's ego.
Yeah.
This movie has literally massaged my ego, because right now they're confirming that black people
have the strongest organs, good eyes. They have good eyes, good genes, strong hearts.
They could also take black people's brains, but then they'd still be those black people. They only take to take their brains and implant them in the black people's brains in order to become the black people.
Right. So guys, you can imagine what mad scientists are doing, because we know they exist. Because imagine if back then in the early 90s, these mad scientists used to carry out sciences that were crazy. So can you imagine in today's world where there's so many things going on, there's so many cures that need to be found, there's so many studies that need to be done in order to
understand why the world is the way it is, why different races of people are the way they are.
Can you imagine the number of things those mad scientists are doing?
And in this movie, they're using black people to live longer, and they're using their organs to survive longer than their shelf lives, meaning they're making themselves immortal. And I'm asking myself, 2030, not 2030, but in future, how is the world looking like? Because when you come to realize all the black workers who are working in that estate, they're not really black people. They're just black in body, but in brain wise they are white people. Their
bodies are being used to host
white people. And guys, if you can remember, for those who've been following us for quite a long time, we once did an episode where we addressed white people, palm colored people, most of them who want black melanin.
By the way, there's a couple of them who are going to change their
melanin by taking injections, medicine, stuff like that.
So, and you're asking yourself, if we are literally the literal representation of what you hate the most in this world, then why are you trying to become it? Yeah, it's not. I feel like to some extent, it's not that they hate black people,
but they envy.
They envy what black people have. You know.
Yeah, because they themselves know the struggle of living as a palm colored person. Imagine you don't have to be systemic, you don't have to experience systemic racism, but what you experience every day is the gift of not having the real gift.
Yeah, and you know, somebody also once said that black people have soul and they have spirit. Soul. That is why everything they do is exemplary. Like, for example, there's soul in the food they cook, in the music they sing, in the way they dance. Literally, they find happiness where even when they don't have a reason to. When you look at the days of slavery, they still managed to somehow find happiness or joy in whatever situation they found themselves in. And when you look at the masters, they didn't used to
they weren't
this,
content.
They weren't contented and they didn't used to like this. So how do you apply this in today's society? You know,
I do feel like if I had a lot of money, like if I was really wealthy, you know how palm colored people find black people fascinating. Right now I've started looking at palm colored people as fascinating human beings. Like, I'd really just want to study
how their
minds work. Like, I don't know. I just find them fascinating in a weird way.
What influences their thought process, you know?
And why they're so insecure. Of course, we all know why they're so insecure, but you know, it should be studied to a certain extent.
Yeah, they also know something that, as we keep on saying, they possess certain information that black people do not have.
Yeah, and they're guarding it with their lives. They're keeping that information.
Yeah, it's just what we are saying. We are not saying that's factual. But yeah, it's just what we are suspecting. We'd like to hear from you what you think about this episode, yeah, because personally I feel like, as I've said, a movie is not just a movie. There's a message that you're meant to, even if you're viewing it for entertainment, you also have to apply it with the current situation, current society,
right? You know, until like right now I even ask myself, okay, we all look like human beings, white, black, whatever color you are, but this movie makes it feel like there are imposters amongst us.
If that makes sense.
Like the way that German lady who changed her skin from white to black, although you can see that is a fake black amongst the black ones, you know. So guys, let us know what you think about this episode. Personally, I do feel that films and movies hold a certain reality or truth of what is happening, even if it is not openly in the world, somewhere accurate. In the dark corners of the world, something is happening.
Yeah, because also let me remind you about the diddler. Everybody knows the diddler, yeah?
Yes,
and the signs were there. Even movies, Cat Williams coming out of a movie saying, I don't want to be found at a diddler party after midnight.
Yeah, I don't want to be in a diddler situation. And that was Cat Williams in a movie. And since it was a comic movie, people were laughing, thinking that they don't even connect the dots.
Yeah, the craziness that goes in there is not the craziness people expected.
You know, until it all blew up in everybody's faces. Yeah, so things have happened.
Anyway, guys, let us know what you think about this episode. We'd really love to hear from you. Also, consider subscribing if it's your first time here. And before we go, I just want to remind you, our babies, if someone takes interest in you, ask yourself what you have that interests them.
Because right now, your melanin is very important, even if some people will come on this app and say, you guys are just ordinary people, melanin is this and that, and where palm colored people can also manufacture their own melanin.
Yeah,
still the truth remains, melanin is important. your organs have it.
You have better taste, better, and that is
eyesight,
scientifically proven. We are
It's
not
not
passing anybody's chest. You have better eyesight and better taste because of it. You have better hearing abilities because of it.
You have better brain thinking capacity because of it. Even though some in our flock might sometimes act mad in this market, most of us can think clearly.
Just do your research. Guys, I think we're gonna be leaving it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's catch you on the next episode, and consider subscribing if it's your first time here.